Welcome to the Leveraging Active Issues and Pivot Tables for Rapid Troubleshooting. Myself and Paul Kelly came up with this particular bootcamp because when we work for MSPs, dealing with a large amount of devices, oftentimes you want to get a view or a semblance of kind of where to focus, especially when you're troubleshooting devices or you're doing your atypical MSP firefighting. So we're going to get into that in just a moment, but before I do, this content may contain forward-looking statements regarding future product plans and development efforts. What that basically means is that if I talk about something in a roadmap, you cannot take that as a promise to deliver. I don't get to make those priorities or those plans, so just know that those product plans and priorities may change. Who am I? My name is Jason Murphy. I'm one of 8 head nerds. We've now grown the head nerd team up to 8 now. I've done what you do. I've worked for many MSPs. I was the technology and security leader for an MSP. I've been doing this IT gig now for almost 25 years. Okay. And if you want to kind of follow me, here are my socials below, or you can send me an email. On Reddit, I'm the ncentral_nerd, or you can just head on over to r/enable and join there. Or you can hit me up on LinkedIn. Okay, so if you want to go to LinkedIn, search for ncentral-nerd. I should have probably kept that as an underscore, but it is what it is. One thing I will tell you is that the nerd team puts out blogs each and every week or month. So if you want to register for Head Nerd blogs without all the marketing stuff, by all means, grab your phone there and take a screenshot of that QR code, and you can register for any of our blog content. I like to talk about things like N-centralist type stuff, patch management, device management. I even get into some operational stuff. I write about hosted versus on-premise, and then I do a whole calculation in terms of your return on investment. So check that out. And just to let you know, in just a few more months, we're going on, at this point, almost a couple months, from April 7th to 9th in Berlin, Germany. We will be at the Intercontinental Hotel, and we'll be hosting Empower. This is our yearly Enable event where we get to meet and greet all of our partners and go through some really awesome stuff like roadmap. We'll be doing a full N-central certification. So far, I've been able to do some certs, for example, patch management, device management, but more and more, we're gonna have like APIs and some other cool stuff. So check that out, more on that before Empower. So let's get right into it, no more commercials. So the agenda for today, we're gonna go through the active issues view. Most people don't spend a lot of time in the active issues, and it is, in my opinion, one of the most important areas of N-central. And if you know how to use the active issues, and I'm not just talking about filtering or what have you, but if you know how to do some cool stuff with it, you can really kind of find where your problems are and solve things really, really quickly. I'm going to tell you 4 things to watch for the active issues view. I'm going to show you how to use the pivot tables for active issues, and then we're going to get into some troubleshooting. How to massage service templates and thresholds and those kinds of things. So we're going to do that, and then we'll do a Q&A. All right, so just to let you know, all thresholds and modifications in this document, it says this document, but basically this webinar, are suggestions based on effectively my best practice or Paul. You should evaluate and adjust any of my recommendations with your team, only because if I tell you to do something and it doesn't match your SLA, then it kind of goes out the window. All right, so make sure that you're roping in your team members to get some buy-in. Okay, so this is a bit of a wordy slide here, but first and foremost, what we want to focus on here is using the active issues view to get a filter. Okay, so when we do this, we're able to present the active. I'm going to go through this as we go through. I'm just going to talk through it first, but we're going to get a semblance of what is most important and even pull some things out that just don't even matter. Okay, But this is going to be a really important exercise for you, right? Because I will be telling you to remove system warranty or the patch status V2 or printer status, what have you. The reason being is that you want to maybe create a view that is going to be really important to what you're working on. Okay, you might have a backup and patch guy or what have you, or girl. The important part here is if you're able to firefight and do so, I want to show you the best opportunity to get something out of that. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to expand the filter in the active issues view. This is not the slide I changed my slides, so it's funny that this is my old one. But we're going to reset the filter. We're going to do some cool stuff. So test number 2, reset that filter in the active issues view. And also what we're going to do is filter for misconfigured and stale. And then selectively, we're going to remove patch, printer status, and toner services, or anything you're not really contractually obligated. This is where, you know, you may have monitoring that's kind of alerting in your dashboard, but you're not really going to do anything with it. And again, record the amounts. This is a really important exercise to kind of get a good understanding of where you are today versus where you could be a month or 2 from now. Okay. Test number 3, is your support team getting too many notifications? I hear this from some MSPs. I don't hear it from a lot anymore. Once upon a time, it would be like, and Central's just blasting me with notifications. It's a little better than it used to be. But I mean, depending on how many devices you're managing, there could be quite a few alerts. So if you can say yes to 1, 2, or 3, this is where we're going to use the active issues view and obviously pivot tables to kind of deal with some of this. And test number 4, am I seeing many failed probes across my customers? So from the SO level, we're going to go down to admin and then probes. And again, if you see any probes outside of that little green checkbox, we've got some issues that we have to deal with. Now, this is important because when you have failed probes, they can actually turn your monitoring into chaos. Okay, so we're going to go through a little bit of this in a second. All right, so let me just pull up my active issues view. Now, I'm going to work from the system level only because this is basically a lab server for me and a whole bunch of other people at Enable. So this is where all of the devices are kind of sitting. So in test 1, I'm basically telling you to reset the filter. And then what we're going to do is we're going to select failed and warning only. And then from there, I'm going to tell you to kind of pull out some stuff. And from here, what I would recommend is both patch statuses, come in and then remove any of the printer stuff, okay? Now, if you're in the printer or copier space, you may very well want to leave this. Reason being is that this might be something that you're actually troubleshooting. Most MSPs do not rely on Central for printer monitoring outside of putting printers in here and kind of keeping an eye on page counts or what have you, okay? Now I'm gonna apply that filter and you're gonna see here right now I have 1,415 issues in my active issues view. I'm going to apply that filter and I'm now down to 47. So I want you to do this exact same exercise, okay? Because I'm going to ask you a question here in a moment. So go ahead and do that. So failed, warning, and remove some of the P's. You can also do system warranty as well. That's often dealt with a little bit later. Let me just reapply that as well. Okay, well, I reduced it by 1. Okay, so pull this back and you will see that you have lots of, issues here. I mean, this is basically a lab. They only have maybe 100 devices in here. You're going to have many, many more, right? So this is a good way to kind of see what is going on. I like to sort by transition time, right? So when's the last time I had an issue? Well, the latest issue here is disk IO on one of my servers or my probes. Now this is my lab, so my probes are always having an issue because I switch from devices to device. Like putting a probe on Paul's laptop, probably not the best idea, but it is what it is, right? Again, a lab. And again, I can sort by service. I can come down here and see connectivity, I can see disk C. I can even hover over these to see if there are legitimate issues. But again, this all takes time, right? So again, using this particular view, I can now export and go to a CSV. Now, I'm going to export a different one once I go to the final stage here, because when we come back, I do want to go back to, where are you here? Number 2, misconfigured and stale. So we'll do that one next. So if I come here and I go into that filter, I'm going to reset. By the way, I always record my counts. So I had 46. Before you reset, let me know the number that you had, okay? So if you're looking at failed and warning and removing some of the other printer and patch or what have you, you can even leave patch in if you wanted to. I like to separate it because I'll do a patch only later on. System warranty, pull those out and give me a number in the questions pane if you could. Only like to kind of see where you guys would be at in terms of your own filtered active issues on failed and warning. Okay, so go ahead and do that. And while you do that, what I'm going to do here is now filter on only misconfigured and stale. We're going to apply that filter. Okay, and you can see there's a bunch of misconfigured and a bunch of stales, right? And I can scroll and scroll and scroll. You can see that I have 761 misconfigured and stales, but you can see that there's large groups of this, right? And again, if your job is to start troubleshooting misconfigured or stales, this is where you would want to, do that export, okay? And this is a really important exercise because when we start talking about probes, now don't judge, my lab is a bit of a mess here, but it's one of those things where get rid of that. But if I come in here, you can see that I've got lots and lots of failed probes. Now, it's important to note that if I just choose this particular checkpoint firewall, you're going to see that under the monitoring, it is all based on probe, okay? Now, I even have 2 probes monitoring it. Usually it should just be 1, but I have a dedicated probe that I used to be able to monitor all of this equipment with. And that's why I have all of these stales. And you can imagine, like sometimes this is a blind spot. You think you have monitoring that is working, but a probe's gone down. And you may have missed a notification or a ticket that has identified all of this. So it's one of those things where you're going to use this pivot table to get a really good semblance of what is going on with your end central estate, because you have so many devices in there and you don't always get to see what the statuses are except for going to the active issues view and kind of seeing one by one, right? Now, you could also filter and come into the device class and filter on network devices. So if I go into network, are you here? They're under the ends, too far. So if I go into network devices, apply that filter. Okay, well, I'm down 400. That's not too bad, but you can see that I still have a large group of network devices that are having problems. And I personally know why this is happening. It's because while I was on holidays over the Christmas break, my IT team decided to delete the lab devices for my probes. So all my probes are down right now. So I have lots of network devices that aren't being monitored at this very moment. Okay, so I know what to do, right? I know how to troubleshoot. Okay. Coming back, what we're going to do is record those amounts. Record the amount for misconfigured and stale. Record the amount for filtered, failed, and warning, right? Again, I also like to do printer, or I should say patch. Now this is my lab, so I won't have a whole lot of patch, but you may, okay? So if you come into reset filter, failed and warning, deselect everything, go to Ps and we'll put patch status v2, apply that. Now, I have 5, right? So not a huge deal in my lab, but you may have hundreds. I've seen people have thousands. Okay, so you want to record those amounts because that's where you're going to focus. You know you're going to have a large group of patch or a large group of connectivity or maybe network devices. And again, what I do is I come in and start troubleshooting these kind of one by one, right? So I have high priority patches that were not approved, or the patch status or the patch management engine is down. Okay, there's a Windows update error. Okay, again, the patch management engine status has failed. Okay, and again, I have low priority patches that have not been actioned in 2,349 days. What this tells me is that at Red 321 company, that the monitoring has not been configured correctly. And if you've ever been to my patch management boot camps, I can quickly spot where monitoring is not set up correctly. In fact, if you have not been to one of my patch management boot camps, I do recommend it because out of the box, the patch monitoring needs to be tweaked a little bit. So I go through how to do that, okay? Now, let's get down to it. All right, so if we're at this level and we do these exports, what we're gonna do is, for the sake of having just a bunch of problems, I'm just going to now select everything. I'm going to select all monitoring, only because I want a large number of problems here. I'll apply that filter, and then I'll do that export, okay, CSV. Now it's going to do this in just a moment. You see the wheel is spinning and it's working away. And here we go. And I will open this up. Now, for whatever reason, give me 1 second here. I have a bunch of different views that I want to show you. And unfortunately, it's on my other screen because I kind of want to just kind of go through one by one what those views can look like. But it's actually saving it to the exact same file name. So active issue, basically, you know, Excel spreadsheet number 11. It's done it 3 times. I haven't seen that before. So I'm going to try this one more time to see if it works. It's not working. So I'm just going to close. Give me 1 second here. Yeah, let me just try this. There we go. Don't convert. There we are. Okay. Now, when we do this export, there's a lot of information in here that we just don't need. First and foremost, column 1 through 3, or I should say rows 1 through 3. I'm simply just going to delete those. I'm going to now turn on the data filter. And then I'm going to delete rows, you know, basically K all the way over, okay? Delete all of this. I'm going to open some of these up just so we can see the names of what they are. Service, here, let's just move that back over a little bit, okay? Status, transition time. And again, you could go through and filter on some of these. Like if I just want to go through and see what's failed, okay? Boom. I have a list of all the failed monitoring that is working in my environment that is actually having a problem. Okay, cool. And I can do that with warning as well. So include that. And I can see those issues as well. Now, I'm going to clear that filter. And then what I'm going to do is now select everything. And then I'm going to go to Insert. And then number 1 over here to the left-hand side, I've got Pivot Table. I'm simply just going to choose that and click OK. And then I'm going to effectively sort the data the way I want to. Now, first and foremost, what I like to do is I think I'll do, let's see here, the service, yes, and then I'll do status in terms of the value. Good. Okay, so from here, this is just telling me all of the monitoring that I have going on across all of my devices, and then it's going to tell me what problems based on account. So you can see that I've got connectivity at 34, Cove monitoring at 6, CPU at 14, DHCP, or no, disk C at 12, right? Now, you know as well as I do, if you have disk C across a bunch of your customers, then this might be something that you actually want to action right away. So priority. This is really important if you're working as a NOC engineer, right? So you're trying to proactively, keep these devices up and running and working and healthy all of the time, right? Now you can even come in and check the device. We call it device/probe, but this will tell me what devices are having that particular issue, right? Or I can create a different view and kind of identify status, right? So if I start, I would actually save this and probably create a new pivot table, but for the sake of time, what we're going to do, oops, got rid of that. But for the sake of time, what we're going to do here is come back and go to that pivot table. Here, let me just start over. And there, I'll just do it again. Okay, and then I could do something like device, and then I could do status. I think I'll try value. No, I want column. And then here's a good one as well. Okay, so you can also see based on the device, whether stale, warning, whether it's blank. There's sometimes missing monitoring as well. I'm just going to delete this row though. Of course I can. But this will tell me what is going on, all right, really, really quickly. And then I can create that particular view that will allow me to jump into problems kind of more head on, right? So this is why I like showing people how to use these different views for troubleshooting. Now I'm just going to come back here and choose, let's see here. I really wish I didn't have to close that other sheet, but it is what it is. So let's go with device class. Okay, so we have servers, and we'll go by device name. So again, if you're the NOC engineer and you're the one responsible for infrastructure, so typically like VMware, physical virtual servers, all of that, you kind of know where to kind of start, right? If you're the network engineer, you kind of know where to start. I can tell you, this will be a pretty quick exercise. All you have to do is kind of, have a probe that's working or get the probe back working, and all of this will start working again. But this is a really good way to find out where to start. And again, I will do something like status in terms of the value, or add a column for that. Sorry, I'll put that in here. So again, if I'm the servers guy and I have servers VMware, I can see that I have servers that are in stale state, or a stale state, or a failed state. And again, I can arrange my pivot tables the way I really need to. Okay. Now that I know where to start, or at least pretend like we know where to start in my lab. Okay. From here, what I'm going to be able to do is, if I now select just failed and warning, okay, I'll apply that. Okay, and I'll come back. So this is why we're going to use the active issues and pivot tables. One, create a view of the active issues you want to focus on. Export as a CSV. So whatever view you've created in the active issues view effectively will be exported when you click on export to CSV. So always finding the right view. You can, again, like I do, I just choose failed, warning, misconfigured and stale, those 4 typically, and then I'll just pivot table the heck out of it and find out what's most important. You may be responsible for just patch. So if you're the patch guy or girl, maybe you just want to focus on just patch and then get a good semblance of what's going on there in terms of amounts and counts. Gather the counts and focus on the highest or the most important issues first, and then troubleshoot. Okay. And as you can see here, you've got your row and your transition, count of transition time, right? So this is a really good way to kind of sort the data so that you know where to start. And again, already did this walkthrough. So let's get into some troubleshooting and why. Okay, so most common issues that I see are in front of you. Okay, so these are the monitors that can sometimes need a little bit of hand holding, we'll call it. So what can you do with these? And again, when you look at a misconfigured or you look at a staled, you have to understand why, right? So with a misconfigured, ask yourself, is SNMP working correctly? Are there service details that are incorrect or invalid? So SNMP, so any network device, or an iDRAC, ILO, and NAS, right? So is SNMP working? Are the service details incorrect or invalid? Look to, for example, HTTP or HTTPS monitoring. Is an aspect of the monitored service missing? Sometimes if you're missing data, it will go misconfigured. Is this, go back. Is the service simply not valid on this hardware? Oftentimes people will miss, what's the right word? Misapply, if that's the right word, monitoring 2 devices that, for example, you're not going to put network monitoring on a server, for example. Okay, failed. Is the service relying on something that isn't reachable? Okay, so for example, you have a probe and it's not able to ping it because it's, hosted at headquarters and the device that you're trying to ping is in another location. Okay, so effectively it's not reachable. Is the service relying on something that isn't working? Check your probes. And is the threshold too aggressive? For example, I see it all the time on, disk on servers. They'll be sitting at 99%, right? Now, that might be even too not aggressive. So it's one of those things that always kind of look at those service templates. And you might see some of these as well, like guest status on VMware or Windows services. I have some partners that just love doing Windows service monitoring. The problem is like depending on what you're monitoring, they could be in a failed state for part of the day or what have you. So you got to kind of understand what quality that the monitoring is going to bring you. Okay, now in terms of probe troubleshooting, okay, so let me find, let me just see here, give me one moment. I'm hoping I have a probe that I can actually log into. I should be able to find one. Okay, well, I'll go to PE0013. Here, let's go 0013. Apply that. And then from here, let's remote control. Open that up. And once it warms up here, I'll type in services.msc and I'll open this up. Now from here, what I'm going to do is scroll all the way down to the bottom where it says Windows, and then I'm going to find the Windows Software Probe, okay? So if I come down here and we see the Windows Software Probe service, okay? Now I'm going to stop this, but before I do, if I just stop it, what's going to happen is the maintenance service is simply just going to restart it. I'm going to stop this one first, okay? So I'll stop this, and then I'm going to stop the probe service. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is click OK. double click back in there. And what should happen is there is a log on, okay? Now, in order to effectively change the login information, we're going to use what is called a start parameter, okay? So I'm going to come back to this doc right here, and we're going to use, I'm just going to copy and paste it really quick. We're going to use this format under step 12, okay? That's username equals, and then it's username or domain / user, and then password equals your password. So I'm just going to copy and paste this, okay? And then I'm going to come in and paste this right in here, and I'm going to format it, okay? So I'm going to put something like this. I'm going to put enable, and then the username is going to be admin1, and then the password is going to be whatever my password is. So password 1 2 3 4 5 6. So I'm not actually going to apply this and save it and break Paul's probe, but if I wanted to, this is where I would then click OK and start that probe. When it starts, this now disappears. You'll never see this again, but we'll then update this information. Okay. So just know that is how you're supposed to change probe credentials. Oftentimes, and not everybody uses probe credentials like a domain administrator or what have you. If you want to use local admin, you can do that as well. Okay. Okay, so what I'll do here is just cancel. And that is one way you're going to get those probes up and working. Bear with me for one moment, please. Sorry about that. I just needed a drink of water. Okay, so now that we've done that, that is one form of probe troubleshooting. Now, if that doesn't work, typically the next easiest thing to do is to simply uninstall and reinstall the probe. And then what you're going to do if you're trying to troubleshoot like network devices or something that, here, let's just do it. If I go to apply, let's go into a network device. Okay. Right here. Okay, so for example, if I come into this, you can see that all my network devices are down. But if I had a working probe, okay, what I would want to do is update asset info. Basically what that's going to do is to tell the probe, hey, rediscover me. And that usually gets that probe or that device up and working, okay? Alternatively, what you can also do is go down to run a discovery and do it that way, okay? Because this includes your SNMP credentials that you're going to need, and then you're going to set up that as a recurring discovery. People ask me all the time, well, why do you set up a recurring discovery? Because every day, in fact, when I worked for an MSP, I would actually set up a morning job and an afternoon job. So I would be discovering at least twice a day, picking up new devices or requerying VMware or network devices. So I would always do that, one in the morning, one in the afternoon. Okay. That's how I did it. You don't have to do it that way if you don't want to. All right. So the probe. Now, probe troubleshooting. If you decide to reinstall the probe, you may simply manually install the appropriate customer specific probe directly over top of the existing one on your customer server. The first time you launch the installer, it will remove the existing probe. You will commonly need to run it a second time to install the probe service. So if you double click, it's going to say, hey, probe's installed. Do you want to remove it? Blah, removes the probe. Double click it again, and it says, okay, let's install. If you choose to install the probe on a different system, do not delete the existing probe in N-Central, okay? Until you have performed a task transfer. And this is what I recommend if you're trying to move a probe from an old server to a new one, or one device to the other, is that you install the new probe first. Let's go here to, let's go here. Here's two probes, okay? So say we've got two working probes, all right? I've just installed the one at leads. Well, what I can do here is transfer tasks from one device to the next, okay? And that's what I recommend that you do if you are trying to migrate probes and you're going to remove the older one. All right. Okay. Every environment, including work groups, should have an in-central probe. Now, that was more optional these days. Most people aren't running domain controllers like they used to, etc. But they do facilitate agent deployment, patch management, device discovery, and act as a source for monitoring for network devices. If you have an environment without a server, consider building a small box, refurb laptop or something like that, running Windows 10 or 11. I'll put a Windows 11. To place in the environment to run your probe. Alternatively, designate a PC in the environment to be an always-on device. You do have to configure your laptop or workstation to be always on, but once you can do that, pretty easy. Okay. Now, last but not least, I want to go through this. So this is service templates, and I do recommend that at least once a year that you do review your workstations and laptops templates. So if I come in here and I go down into monitoring service templates, I'm going to go all the way to bottom and find, where are we here? Workstations dash Windows, there, right at the bottom. Okay. And what I'm going to do is just a quick review. The reason being is that you may have been a partner for a very, very long time. Now, over the years, we have made some changes, or I've told people to, change things along the way or what have you, but just know that we are monitoring CPU. We are not alerting on CPU. What alerts on CPU? It is the threshold, okay? It is the overlay on top of what we're querying. Now, I know this says monitoring off. It's not monitoring off. This is monitoring thresholds off, okay? So if I was to turn this on, let's go default. Let's go normal. Let's go custom. There we go. So from here, I can change things, right? So I got 0 to 85, 80 to 95, 90 to 100. You're like, why are those overlapping? Well, what it actually is 0 to 80, and then this would be 81 to 94, and then 95 to 100. But overlaps are effectively exactly what you see here, right? But, it is the lowest. So if you go in here and this is 85, and then this is 80, and then this is 90, and then this is, let's go 85, okay. Oop, let's go 89, there we go. So 0 to 85 is normal, but if it actually happens between 80 to 85, it actually goes into a warning state. That's why I'm saying you don't have to use overlapping thresholds, but it does make sense in some situations, typically when you have CPU and memory, okay? So you'll see overlapping thresholds here as well. Now, you can see that the monitoring is off on a workstation. It's not off on a server, so we're alerting on memory on a server, but not CPU, okay? And I do recommend that. Otherwise, things just get too noisy. Disk. One thing I will tell you about disk is that by default, we choose to turn on use asset info. So what happens is if a customer puts in a USB drive or some kind of storage device, we may pick that up as a drive and remap that, and we'll persistently map that, okay? So what I typically recommend is that we hard code it. Typically, you're contractually obligated to make sure that C is working because that is where Windows is 99% of the time, okay? So C:\\, and then I will use this, okay? And then save. As you can see, it now says disk C. Patch status, delete it. We'll never use it because we have patch status V2. It's way better. So we're going to use this. Now, the important part here is I could go on for probably the next 20 minutes as to why I change all of the monitoring, but I do a boot camp on that. So please check out the patch management bootcamp. I will explain to you in depth, probably ad nauseum, as to why I use patch based on age settings as opposed to all of the other stuff that's up here. Too many false positives, too much garbage, okay? Smart status, that's fine. System warranty. Now, what I typically do with system warranty is I make sure that it's off, okay? So I turn it off because even though it won't alert anymore, I still monitor it. The thing is like, I'll just use reporting for that, right? So some things are better left for alerts, some things are better left for reporting, okay? And system warranty just happens to be one of those. And then I'll typically come in and delete some of this other stuff that I just don't need or want, okay? And then what I'll do is I'll start adding in additional monitoring to provide my customers more and more value around my service delivery, right? BitLocker monitoring. There is, again, if I come into me.n-able.com, what I'm able to do here is come into learning, enable you. I can watch my videos, or I can go to resources and click into the automation cookbook. So from here, I can search for something, so say I want BitLocker. Okay, cool. Type in BitLocker, search for it. Here they all are. Or if I want, I can filter. Okay, so if I come down, I can look through all of the monitoring. Here, one more time. There we go. Actually, one more time. That's it. So I can come in here and look for custom service or script check, and then I will typically choose N Central. Okay, and then from there, what I can do is there's a take control repair script, there is disabling Windows recall, there is a ton of stuff in here. Okay, so by all means, please check that out, and you can add in more monitoring to your workstations and laptops. Okay, equally, do this exact same exercise for laptops. Do it for servers. Do it for VMware, right? The reason being is that you're going to make things much tidier and more concise as you're improving your service delivery. Pardon me. All right, so coming back. That's it. That's it for today. It's a nice short boot camp. Hopefully you got some value out of that, at least using pivot tables. I personally used to use pivot tables in my active issues view. If you're in help desk, you probably aren't looking to proactively solve a lot of issues because you're probably working through tickets. But if you're a NOC engineer, or if you're in security or what have you, there might be lots of good reasons to use pivot tables from the active issues view. So I hopefully this one applied to you. And if not, hopefully you got something out of it. Anyways, my name is Jason Murphy. That's it for today. If you have any questions, I'm going to leave this open for another 2 minutes. If nothing comes in, I'll shut it down. Otherwise, I will see you on the next webinar, bootcamp, or masterclass. Take care.